Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about Citadel going bankrupt, the AMC floor price, confidence in AMC surging, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this. Firstly, we have to understand AMC, the #1 movie theater company, was supposed to go bankrupt in 2020. And here we are in 2025, and I've just seen major movie release dates for 2027 and 2028. Let that sink in. So we have to understand the projection for AMC is only getting better and better. People are focused about AMC right now, but AMC themselves are focused about what's going to happen in 2, 3, 4, and 5 years down the line. And the projections for the future is that we are going to do great. People who wanted AMC to go bankrupt back in 2020 are still stuck in this play and hoping AMC to go bankrupt now, or 2026, 2027, or anytime in the future. However, we know that that's not going to happen, especially with how well AMC is performing. But on the other hand, the firms that are hoping AMC to do bad are seemingly the ones who are actually doing bad. So if you take a look at this here, breaking, Ken Griffin's Spirit Airline files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the second time this year. The stock is down 45% and halted. So what we're looking at is for Spirit Airlines, who once again filed for Chapter 11, and then the stock is down 45%. Earlier this year, we talked about Spirit to exit bankruptcy as billionaire Ken Griffin Citadel among buyers. So they wanted, or they did, buy up Spirit Airlines. Now, we talked about this in our 2 previous videos about the recent filings of Citadel, about the recent situation at Citadel. Something that we've known was for that the last quarter, Citadel's revenue slumped, their profit slumped. We knew that for February, for March, for April, they were forced to close out risky positions. They were forced to close out over leveraged positions. And so we know that they are in a position where most of their positions are either too risky or are losing money. And so that's something that we know that's happening for Citadel right now. And then you add on top of that, the investments in which they're making are now going bankrupt. It really makes sense, and it sums up what is actually happening for the short sellers. Now, something I want to go more into is that for the Spirit Airline bankruptcy, many people have different assumptions about it. Some obviously are speculating the fact that it was actually Citadel themselves who were shorting and they were trying to make money off of this. But of course, others are speculating the fact that they bought into this as an investment because they thought it was cheap, they thought it was a good return, but it clearly ended up not working, and therefore they lost their investment in that. Now, we don't have any confirmations on it whatsoever. If someone has any ideas or if you have any thoughts, make sure to comment down below. Let us all know. I'll obviously take a look at it as well. But what we can see is that even with everything else included, Citadel and any other short sellers of AMC are not in a good position right now. They have wished upon AMC's bankruptcy for the last 5 years, but the reality is AMC's income, AMC's fundamentals are only getting better and better, whereas on the other hand, their fundamentals are going down, whether it's a decline in revenue, whether it's a decline in income, whether it's a decline in profit. All of that are all going down, but AMC is obviously going up. And so you can clearly see the difference between the shorts and AMC, and it's why we know that the shorts are extremely worried about what's going on right now. Another thing to add on, which I think is quite interesting, which is just notice that the AMC floor.com has been taken down. It existed for years, suggesting a floor price for AMC must have happened fairly recently. Here's what it looks like today versus December last year. So AMCfloorprice.com is something that we've used in the past. Now, we talked about this. Essentially, you see is a website that gives what their opinions on for the AMC floor price, which is updated weekly. Now, there was no actual data which was supporting the floor price behind it, right? There wasn't a special calculations, a special algorithm that was used, but it was based off of every factors that was affecting AMC. You can just see some of the ones listed here: naked short selling, dark pools, spoofing, market manipulation. The list goes on, and even some which are not mentioned in there, but I'm sure that the people behind it were obviously familiar with what's going on. But then we have to understand is that, if you did list out everything, one website like this, just that tiny space wouldn't fill it, because we know that truly they've manipulated using so many strategies on AMC. But the thing is that this website is now down. And, I am curious to why this is happening, because some people are saying is that because short sellers, especially with what we're seeing with the short sellers right now, with how they're struggling, the fact that they were forced to close out positions, the fact that their over leveraged positions are now deemed as, not safe even by banks who are loaning them money, the fact that they have the correct positions, the fact that they don't have the right methods to continuously suppress AMC, and so many more that we've mentioned in recent videos. Is it because they're forcing to close down the AMC floorprice.com, or is it just the simple case that the people behind it either ran out of money to continuously pull up the site, or they've left AMC, right? We don't know exactly what's going on. If you were behind this particular website and you're watching these videos, or anyone who knows about it, feel free to comment. We have to make sure that everything in the community is obviously known by others. This is the whole reason why we have been able to fight these short sellers. It's why we've been, continuously supporting AMC. Is because we knew that the price dropping of AMC isn't because of anything actually bad, but because of suppression. And Apes knew that, because all of you guys who are watching these videos, all of you guys on Twitter have continuously shared the due diligence, have continuously done your research, and that's why we have been in this. And so anyone who knows anything about this, feel free to obviously comment down below, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can talk about it. Then you're looking at this 81.6 million AMC shares traded in dark pools in just 10 days, and they call this a fair market. Stay blind if you want, Ape sees the game. Now, this correlates with what I was just saying, with the fact that, the reason why Apes have been extremely strong and why we have always been combating the shorts is because we know exactly what's going on, and we make sure that all these other apes also know what's happening. And what we saw was that in the last 10 days, 81.6 million AMC shares were traded in the dark pools. And so that's why we understand when we see the price of AMC dropping, we know that it isn't because of people selling. We know that it isn't because there's a bearish sentiment on AMC, but rather the fact that people are constantly suppressing AMC. People are constantly stealing the buy orders away from AMC. And so we will continuously expose this. We'll continuously let everyone know exactly what's happening in the market. And then earlier we talked about Citadel, and we also talked about the dark pool. And so now let's just look more into what they're doing and why recently we're seeing them fail to do so. So we know that Citadel isn't in a good position right now. Whether it's the fact that they need to take up more loans, whether it's the fact they were forced to close out positions, whether it's the fact that their investments are going bankrupt, it's all showing that they are not doing well. But then here's the catch on how they're still utilizing other things to suppress AMC, which in this case is, of course, the internalization. So it's pure internalization on Citadel, most likely, which will avoid the DTCC. So about this is that if a market maker internalizes an order against its own inventory, that can stay off DTCC books. Purely internal. And so what we've talked about in the past was how Citadel actually internalizes a large amount of their orders, especially the AMC orders, which we have seen on data in the past. Now, things about that is that when you do that, you're obviously, like we say here, staying off the DTCC book. So we are unable to see what's going on. So when we talk about how there are so many swaps existing for AMC, why there's so many FTDs, but yet it's not shown for AMC, why there are so many synthetics for AMC, it's because of companies that utilizes strategies like this. But then you have to understand that it's just because they internalize an order, it doesn't mean that that order doesn't exist. It's just that it doesn't actually show on records. But it's precisely a position that still exists and is still harming this firm. So it's why we're seeing, the fact that Citadel, whilst making record profits, still need to take up loans to pay out to the investors, why they were forced to close out, some of the risky pods that we've talked about in the past. And so you can understand that they are obviously struggling. And then we've seen this, it seems AMC bashing and FUD spreading has geared up lately. When that happened last year, AMC suddenly jumped 300% in a day. So what we've talked about, what we've seen recently is the constant AMC FUD, and especially, and I'm not, fazed by this whatsoever. I know that it's always going to happen, But in the comments, especially on these videos, you will see a ton of people telling you to sell your AMC shares, to do whatever, blah, 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 right? And we always see that. But we have to understand is that the reason why they are doing this is because they are worried about what's going on. People who aren't part of institutions and are making these comments is because of maybe they've left AMC and they don't want to see AMC go up, 10,000% because they would have missed out on that. Then it's of course the institutions who understands that if AMC were to squeeze, these institutions would get bankrupted and they will have to be liquidated and pay up us hundreds of thousands of dollars per person. And so that's what they are afraid of, and that's why we see these comments. But every time we do see these comments, we see AMC have a massive breakout. And so that's why we talked about AMC blowing up every time we see these FUDs. As always, this is financial advice, so do take advice on so make sure to do your own due diligence and research, and I'll catch you guys next time.